Hi guys, let's just do this fun original Thanksgiving tag from Madison, shall we? Hi guys, welcome back, bienvenue and all that jazz. It's time to do a fun little book tag recommendation style video themed around dishes from everybody's overindulgent food holiday Thanksgiving, at least here in the US. And so Thanksgiving is supposed to be a time of family coming together and all that kind of stuff. And so just for me personally, Thanksgiving is a little bit different because I don't have a big family. So I don't have memories of like going to grandma's house and doing all of that kind of stuff. My parents had me much later in life. I think my mom was 36 when I was born, and my grandparents were really never part of the picture. They had either passed before I was born or when I was very young. And so I just don't have those memories of like grandparents and stuff like that, or the big family Thanksgiving meal. I did used to go over to my Taekwondo instructor's house, and she would invite me and my husband over, and we would hang out with her and her big family. So I have seen that kind of Thanksgiving meal, but like that's not my norm. And so I think a lot of these dishes or a lot of these traditions that Madison talks about in her video, that of course I've linked below because she made this tag, I just don't have memories of those things, so I may sub out some of those dishes. Plus, to be honest, I'm a very picky eater. I've gotten significantly better over the years, but like, I'm a pretty picky eater, that's to be totally honest with you. So I'm gonna let Katya go because she's getting a little squirmy. Okay, so prompt number 1 is mashed potatoes, or this is supposed to be the dish that's a crowd pleaser. So this is a challenge to recommend a book that we think has kind of broad appeal. And for me, I don't think mashed potatoes are that appealing. I don't like the texture. I much prefer a macaroni and cheese. But anyways, for a crowd-pleasing book, I'm going to say The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. This kind of blends horror-esque vibes with a tiny bit of fantasy, whether or not you consider vampires like fantasy creatures or not. But this is basically like a mystery thriller, think the Da Vinci Code, where we are following these different clues in these different historical sites, kind of tracking Vlad the Impaler throughout the ages, trying to find where he is in modern day. And of course, Vlad Dracula is the kind of historical figure that later inspired Dracula. So there are vampire things involved, and it's just a really good time. And I think that it can kind of appeal to horror-esque readers and mystery thriller readers, and it has more of a broad appeal. We'll move on to the next dish. So the next dish is turkey, which is a classic dish. I'm not a huge fan of turkey. Like on Thanksgiving Day, I will be making steaks, not turkey, but I get that it is classic, whatever, it's fine. And so a must-read classic for me, since we're on the vampire train, let's just say Dracula. So I am primarily a fantasy reader, but I do love me some vampires in my like urban fantasy type thing. And so I think a great classic for people to read is Dracula by Bram Stoker. I think for a second I wanted to call him Bram Stoker, and I was like, oh, nope, that is a very different kind of video. But, so I think Dracula is a lot of fun. It is a very classic novel, but I think that the kind of mystery and the atmosphere that is created that makes it such an unsettling experience while you're reading it is just great. It is not schmexy vampires by any means. They are quite horrifying, but I think if you're looking for like a gothic classic to kind of dip a toe in, you can't go wrong with Dracula. Then Madison is a monster and likes to smother everything with gravy, and attacked me personally by making fun of people who like to keep their food separate, and you might as well have a cafeteria tray. Rude. But gravy, she says that you can't get enough of it, and I'm not a fan of gravy. So for me, I can't get enough of it. We're gonna go garlic bread for that, because I don't want your gravy anywhere near me or my food, and I don't want my food mixing on my plate. No, thank you. So garlic bread, I cannot get enough of, which oddly enough kind of sticks with the vampire thing, but whatever, it's fine. So it's a favorite trope, or a trope that we can't get enough of. So for me personally, my favorite trope of all time is the kind of gods among us trope. I just love having these like divine beings, kind of seeing how they interact with people, or the kind of higher level manipulations on like continent scale, or these conflicts that they have that can be so next level because they have godlike powers. So if you love gods among us, then I would say maybe check out the Vagrant Gods by David Dalglish, or pretty much any of the Forgotten Realms books have gods that are involved or manipulating things in some way. there's just, it's such a fun trope. So if you have more books that really feature prominently the gods among us trope, please leave your recommendations down below. I would love to see them because that is my favorite trope ever. Then the next kind of weird side dish that people have a lot for Thanksgiving is like cranberries or cranberry sauce, which again, oh. So this food, I get that people are saying that it acts as like a palate cleanser, but no thank you. But sometimes when you are reading big chunky fantasy books, you do want that kind of cleanser, a more fun ride to kind of just give you that blood pumping before you jump into your next kind of slower burn. I totally can respect that. And so for me, I think a great palate cleanser is the Anita Blake Vampire Hunter series by the one, the only Laurell K. Hamilton. And so this is very urban fantasy. We're in St. Louis, I think. Wow, is my memory bad? We're in some city in the United States, and vampires have recently been given the kind of legal status of a normal living being. So they have all the rights and stuff associated with that. And so there are, of course, conflicts between the humans and the vampires. And in Anita Blake, there's basically every fantasy creature you would want to see, even from myths and legends. There's Nagas from like Indian mythology. There's Fae. There's shifters of every kind. Were leopards, were jaguars, were hyenas, were bears, were wolves, were everything. There are really cool different bloodlines of vampires, depending on which kind of master vampire your bloodline comes from. And the vampires are very French inspired because they call it their source de sang. Their like fountain of blood is kind of their liege lord, if you will. And the magic is super cool. And each book, especially in the beginning, is kind of a la Dresden Files. But I want to say that Anita Blake started coming out first, but don't quote me on it. Maybe I'll look that up because I'm not totally sure. But basically, we're following Anita Blake. Her primary job is as an animator at Animators Incorporated, where she raises the dead for the living in order to like settle legal disputes. She also has a degree in preternatural biology, and so she kind of serves as a consultant with the local police on supernatural crimes, and then she kind of gets thrown into vampire politics. And eventually, by book 6 or 7, there starts to be more schmexy times. It starts to form a polycule kind of at the center of the story, and it's fantastic. I love it. I've been reading it since junior high, which might explain some of why I'm such a messed up human being. But we love it anyways, and we're going to move on. Then the next dish I had not heard of, but it sounds absolutely disgusting. So she described what she calls a green bean casserole, which is green beans, canned green beans with cream of mushroom soup and like little crispy things on top, and it sounds vile. But this is supposed to inspire a book that looks gross, but tastes great. So a book that has a hideous cover, but you love the story, I'm assuming is what that means. And so for me, I'm going to go with the Aurelian cycle by Rosaria Munda, in particular, book 1, Fireborn. I think the cover, I'll put it up, it looks like the most horrendous early 2000s 3D generated model from a video game. I think it is like the ugliest cover. I like the color scheme, but it looks atrocious. But the Aurelian cycle is fantastic. It is young adult, so we are following characters in their teen years, and especially in Fireborn, we're starting kind of relatively close after this violent revolution took place where we overthrew these dragon lords and have put in its place a different kind of society, and so it's more of a meritocracy, and so you can kind of test, and based on these test results you are placed in a different medal group, which gives you different privileges in this society. And so we're following 2 characters, Annie and Lee, on their quest to become the lead of the like dragon riding fleet that protects this nation. There's a lot of dealing with childhood trauma. There's a lot of dealing with what political system is best for the most people and the pros and cons of different kinds of political systems. It's a very nuanced take. It does start off feeling kind of Hunger Games-esque with like a competition, but it quickly kind of diverts from there and turns into this much more deep, rich political tale. And if you want more details about the Aurelian cycle, I have a whole why you should read that's spoiler-free that I'll link for you up above if you want more deets on that series, because it is really good. Then up next, Madison apparently really likes stuffing, and so she finds it comforting to eat stuffing, which live your life. I'm here for you. And so for this, she said, name a comfort read. And so for me, comfort read has to be anything in the Forgotten Realms universe. I've talked about it before, but the Forgotten Realms I've been introduced to much younger when I used to go and check out Borders, if you want to know how old I am. And I just found them in the fantasy aisle. I just fell in love with the world and the complexities of it and all of these different stories by these different authors taking place in a shared world. And so I had already grown up loving the Forgotten Realms books in my junior high and high school years especially. And then when my husband and I first started dating, he also had a collection of Forgotten Realms books that were actually Forgotten Realms books that I had never read. And so we were able to merge our collections. And so just the Forgotten Realms hold such a special place in my heart. And so reading anything in the Forgotten Realms is quite comforting to me because it just holds such nostalgia and they're so much fun. And so they just kind of whisk you away into this comforting, magical world. And it's so much fun. Now we're talking onto the fun dishes. So up next, we're talking pies and desserts. And we just have to say for a moment that Madison is a monster and thinks that pumpkin pie is like baby food. And ma'am, pumpkin pie is my favorite pie. So Alex and I will definitely be making pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving Day. And I'm so excited. I cannot wait because it is so good. Oh, but anyways, so obviously Thanksgiving is all about overindulgence and eating too much, but I think it's really that core of just being thankful for the people in your life and the things in your life and kind of celebrating that through cooking and sharing food with another. It's a unique experience. But by the time you get to dessert, you probably have already eaten too many calories for the day, but you're going to eat it anyways. And so for this prompt, it's to name a guilty pleasure read. And so I don't really feel guilty about any of the books that I like to read, but there are certain books with certain content that sometimes when I'm reading them in like public, I get like embarrassed about what I'm reading in public or like what the cover is or what the title is, and then you kind of like hide them because you don't want people to know, but you're so sucked into the book that you don't really care and you're just going to keep reading anyways. And so for me, that would be the Mary Gentry series by, again, Laurell K. Hamilton. I know, broken record, I love her. You should read her if you haven't read any books by Laurell. You should read some and then come back and talk to me. You're welcome. But the Mary Gentry series is her much more fae-focused series, and it's also much smuttier from the jump. I think one of the first scenes is her and her Selkie lover kind of like, if you know what I mean. And there's these fae kind of glow with their power, and so if we're describing things, then they're glowing and... But like I remember like the covers are very like, I'll put some of them up, but they'll be like a leg or a shirtless torso, and then the names are always like very evocative or provocative, like a lick of frost, Mistral's kiss. You know what I mean? So it's just like, those are the books where you're like, ooh, I shouldn't be reading these in public, but they're a lot of fun. And they follow kind of a similar setup to Anita, where this time we are following a Fae princess who has kind of left the Fae courts because she doesn't want to be involved in the politics, and she is now working in the human world as a private investigator, and she kind of gets swept back up into the Fae court politics, and it's great. I love those books too. Then the next prompt is the Veggie tray, so name something that's just for looks. And this one, I have a hard time thinking of anything on my shelf. So the idea of this prompt is something that you kind of have on your shelves because you either felt pressured to have it or you feel like you're not a real fantasy collector without having X or Y book on your shelves. And for Madison, that was for the Silmarillion because she has no intentions of reading it, but I've read the Silmarillion multiple times and I love it. So that doesn't work for me. I don't know. I guess I have down here where you can't really see them. I have some like textbook style things of martial arts through the ages or ancient Egyptian history that I really have no plans to read. I just like owning them and liked the art in them, and so therefore I own them. So does that count? I mean, it counts for me because I'm going with it anyways, regardless of what anybody says, because this is my Veggie. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have display books to be like, ooh, street cred for fantasy. And I know she wanted people to call themselves out, but in all honesty, I have everything that I have with the full intent of reading it. Even like my special editions, like I have some of the Dragonsteel editions of like Way of Kings or Warbreaker, and I read from those editions too. So I don't really have anything that's like purely for display. Even my like bougie Book of Shadows replica from the TV show Charmed, I've read it. So the only things that I own that I haven't read and don't really have any intention to is those like textbook style ones down below. So that's the answer you get. Then for a lot of people, they really love the leftovers the next morning after Thanksgiving Day. They make these crazy turkey sandwiches and stuff like that. And I don't really like turkey. I don't really like sandwiches all that much. So I don't really do that. But one dish that I think is better after it's like cooled in the fridge and then reheated is Kraft macaroni and cheese. And I don't know what kind of white trash that makes me, that I don't know really what a green bean casserole is, but I love reheated Kraft macaroni and cheese. We're not going to unpack that in this video today, but so the idea of the leftovers is something that's better on a reread. And I know this is kind of the cliche answer, but I've recently been rereading The Lord of the Rings, and I already had a lot of nostalgia for it because I had read The Lord of the Rings originally, I think in like 5th grade, and I loved them then, and then I loved the movies. There's a lot of warm, fuzzy feelings associated with seeing those movies with my horseback riding instructor at the time, because I volunteered at this ranch where we helped facilitate and rehabilitate abused horses. And so I did that a lot through junior high, and I just have these fond memories of going and seeing those movies with my horseback riding instructor, Michelle, and she was obsessed with Viggo Mortensen, which is hilarious. But Lord of the Rings already holds a strong place in my heart, and then my favorite versions to read are some of the first, I think maybe it's the first Christmas or birthday that my husband and I were together. He got me these beautiful illustrated editions of Lord of the Rings, also from Borders. And so just that series, just like, oh, it just sits in my feelings so deeply. And just rereading it, for this time I've been rereading it for the first time on audio with the new Andy Serkis narrations, and it's just like a whole different experience, and it just feels so new and fresh, and it's so good. But I'm gonna stop gushing about it because you've all heard of Lord of the Rings, and we'll move on to the next one. And so this is, Madison talks about having these like different personalities at your Thanksgiving dinner, and like I said, I don't have a huge family, so I don't really see my family all that often. There used to be like a Christmas Day thing, but that's a little bit different. And so this time we're talking about The Long-Winded Uncle, so a book that went on too long. And I know you guys are going to come at me, I know you guys are going to hate on me, but I finally finished the Farseer trilogy today as of filming this video. I finished Assassin's Quest, and my God, did that book go on for way too long. It did not need to be almost 840 pages. We needed some serious editing, some serious kind of jostling of things, but I'm not going to fully unpack my Farseer thoughts here. I'm going to make a full dedicated spoiler-free / spoiler-filled discussion of whether or not my Farseer journey was worth it. I have thoughts, both positive and negative. There are many thoughts that I have about Farseer that I'd like to unpack and kind of have a discussion with people in the comments about. So stay tuned for my Farseer thoughts. But my God, was Assassin's Quest too long? And I don't think that's an unpopular opinion. I think a lot of people feel that way, but it's my answer for this. Then the penultimate question is family drama, a book that has a lot of plot twists and turns. And so for that, I'm going to say book 3 in the Song of Ice and Fire series, A Storm of Swords. I just finished reading that for the first time, and it was buddy read with the creator of this tag, Madison, and my God, does that book have twists and turns. Like, gut punches left and right, dramatic reveals, horrible things happening, kind of cool things happening, new character development. It is so topsy-turvy, but whew, is it good? So my answer for this, if you want plot twists and turns and you like big, sprawling, kind of self-indulgent political fantasy, you can't get that much better than the Song of Ice and Fire series by the J.R.R. Martin, the Germ, if you will. And then the final question is holiday planning. What's an anticipated read for 2023? And so coming up soon, I had recently announced it again in my community tab. We are doing the full announcement and meet the hosts for my Great Cosmere Along of 2023 to 2024. And so I'm looking so forward to rereading all of the books in the Cosmere and then reading the new secret projects that are associated with the Cosmere or all of that kind of stuff. And I just cannot wait to go through it with a group of friends and get to talk about it with everybody in live show formats. It's going to be so much fun. But if you want more details about how that read along is working and the schedule and stuff like that, you can look over on my community tab for the day and time of the announcement video and either come catch us live, or of course you can watch it later at your own leisure. But that will bring this fun little Thanksgiving tag to a close. This was a lot of fun to do, even though I don't like a lot of the dishes that Madison would choose to subject me to, but it's totally fine. So If you are a booktube creator and you want to do a fun little Thanksgiving themed tag, then tag your it. And if you end up doing this because you saw me, feel free to tag me in your video with a little @ so I can go watch it, or just DM me and let me know, because it'd be fun to see other people's answers to these questions as well. If you want to answer any of these questions, please leave your thoughts in the comments down below, or if you want to recommend me any gods among us, please let me know. And of course, like this video if you feel so inclined. Subscribe for more bookish shenanigans like this from moi. So with that, we'll bring this video to a close. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!